Hello and welcome to Your Life Starts Today podcast with your hosts, Andrew Jones, Johnny Angel, and psychic Lisa Ann. Hello and welcome to show number 1 of Your Life Starts Today with Johnny Angel, psychic Lisa Ann, and myself, Andrew Jones. So we've decided to sit down, as it is today, February the 14th, the day of love. We've decided to sit down and actually talk about love and what it means in its various forms. Before we get into today's topic, let's introduce ourselves one by one.
Hi, I'm Johnny Angel, and I just wanted to let you know a little bit about myself. I am a psychic medium, a paranormal investigator, writer, teacher, and Reiki master, healer. And it's my pleasure to be a part of this podcast and to be able to have a forum to talk with all of you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Psychic Lisa Ann, and I am the owner of Spirit Quest Healing Center. I am happily celebrating my 14th year this year. I am also a psychic medium, healer, and author. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa Ann. And my name is Andrew Jones. I'm a stoker of souls, and this simply means I help to put a fire within you to increase the inner passion to help you find the drive and purpose that you were brought here to accomplish this lifetime. I have studied Reiki, quantum touch, and have created my own successful, powerful healing technique. I am climbing the ranks of psychic ability, especially since hanging with these two amazing individuals. I am author and creator of my new book, Soul Purpose, and the 12 Levels of Manifesting, meditation cards being released soon. We three came together not so by accident. It seems the universe had this in store for us for quite some time. When we finally began to put our heads together, everything flowed as though it was already pre-written. So we knew we were onto a winning combination of talent, drive, and ability that would indeed help to leave a positive mark on the world. So without any further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? Psychic Lisa Ann, you love Valentine's Day, don't you?
Oh, I so love Valentine's Day, the famous commercialized holiday.
Johnny, have you bought any flowers for anyone today?
No, not today.
Not
but
today.
There's some Facebook, sending, but that was it. Some flowers.
I actually sent jelly beans last night and cupcakes to someone on Facebook. So it's getting very commercialized these days. So. Yeah, it's becoming easier and easier to spend those dollars.
I think that with Valentine's Day, there's such a big focus on being in love and love as far as couples, but I think sometimes people forget that there's also self-love that's very important.
I agree. Self-love is the thing that comes before you attract a loving relationship anyway.
I think typically it's meant to be the thing that comes before a loving relationship, but many people do not realize that because they don't love themselves, that's why many of their relationships actually end up ending, or they carry on in such a haphazard manner. So coming to terms with yourself on as many levels as you can is a huge key in finding someone else, let alone happiness in your life.
Well, as a psychic medium, I get a lot of clients that want to know about relationships and love. Mm-hmm. And what's very interesting is as the angels a lot of times the first thing that comes up is about what's going on inside the very person, mm-hmm. rather than what's happening outside of them. And it does come into the law of attraction of why we attract certain relationships and the lessons that we learn from them. And I think that gets a little confusing for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I think, too, in doing readings, a lot of times the self-love issue, people need to put themselves first in the sense that when we're in relationships that are not working, we need to know and we need to walk away from them and do what's right for ourselves.
Right. Those relationships, it's always difficult, is there something inside of you that you're projecting and can fix and therefore fix the relationship? Or was it just as a friend of mine once said, a reason and a season.
Exactly. I have a famous line that I use all the time. I always say to people, if I said to you, I have a magic wand and I'm waving it, and I don't have a magic wand, I just want to be very clear about that. I'm waving this magic wand and I am freeze framing your relationship as it is right now. It's never going to get better, but it's never going to get worse. Would you stay in it? Because I think a lot of people stay in relationships too long because they think down the road something's going to change, or they live in the past and say, well, I put all this time into it. So I think it's all, and we talk about this a lot between the three of us, it's about living in the moment, not waiting for, well, maybe down the road something's going to be better, or, well, I invested all this time. You have to look at what's in front of you right now.
Yeah, I've encountered quite a few times relationships where they are not living in the moment, and in fact they're in tears because they're living in the moment of someone else's life. So I mean by that, they don't have kids yet, or we're not engaged yet because their friends are, or their friends have kids,
right,
and what have you. So it's it truly is finding that happy place within, and just making sure that you're okay with yourself, and you don't really need anyone else to complete you. It's always nice. I'll be the first to admit I'm a very happy codependent when it comes to relationships, but to find that happy place, and just know that you're okay, that you can now take on life living with someone else.
I actually read a very interesting article today that they have done research that people that have a breakup, the reaction in the brain is the same as withdrawal from cocaine.
Yeah.
Like there is a chemical reaction that happens when people have a breakup. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was so powerful, because I think that when you are focused on loving yourself, that leads to sometimes making very difficult decisions. And I think people get love very confused. You can love someone and acknowledge that that might not be the person that's right for you long term. So you can love them, but also acknowledge that you might need to move forward from that person because you're not going in the same direction. So it's nobody's fault. It's not right or wrong. It's just, what direction are you going in, and what direction is that other person going in?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, this is obviously one of the most complicated questions, so to speak, in the world that we experience, because it's such an intense and powerful emotion. But when you break it down and you apply the body, mind, spirit connection, you realize that there is a spiritual connection, that there's a physical connection, as well as, hormones and just, there's what attracts someone to someone else, the initial spark, and then it leads into all of these chemicals going on in their body, and then we think it's this person, and then there's the whole, fairy tale of, forever and live happily ever after. And I do believe that there are soulmates, there are special relationships, but I believe that there is more than one.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with that.
Absolutely. And for different reasons as well. They might be for different areas of your life, to help you develop in certain ways. And, and I think you can have a phase with someone where you meet a soulmate and you get on absolutely fantastic, and it's all on fire, and the world's fantastic, and everything's beautiful. You're looking through rose-colored glasses every day, and then all of a sudden something happens. It's almost like the expiration date has come on that, and it's on to the next soulmate and finding them.
I think Hollywood has romanticized soulmates. I always tell people, and this is just my LA philosophy, which means there is no scientific proof, nor do you need to agree with me.
Do we need like a
we need a disclaimer.
LA philosophy.
There you go. But I always say a soulmate is not always necessarily a romantic relationship. So I totally agree with Johnny that there's not just one. A soulmate is just somebody that you have a very strong, energetic, spiritual connection. Yeah. It could be a coworker, it could be a child, it could be a friend. It's just people there that you meet that there is almost an instant recognition with, and they come into your life for a reason. And just what you said, Andrew, when that meeting or that purpose is reached, then sometimes they just go off on their own.
I've got guy soulmates, you know. It's people that I click with so strongly. They're almost like a blood brother, and they know me inside out. They can finish your sentences. You know, I'm happily with someone. They're married, and you know, nothing is just there's a much deeper connection. And if I were to ask them, they would absolutely agree with me. So yeah, it's really quite magical. And I think to step out of that box and just look at things a little bit bigger than just a romantic or a Hollywood or a Hallmark type of love, it's it's nice. But I think one of the bigger things is when you actually start to wake up to the world and the life around you, and you start to see, look, see, that was angels. Do you hear that now?
That was fabulous.
So that's a little note from the heavens saying, Andrew, you've got it right. So yeah, it's...
I'll be the judge of that.
Yes. Over to the angelologist.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That was the angels.
That's perfect timing.
Actually, I did want to go back to a little bit of what Lisa Ann was talking about Hollywood and romanticizing. There is a bit of this the way we grow up seeing these fairy tales, and we get that imprint and that programming, and I say that it's a beautiful thing. It's definitely something worth pursuing, but I think that where we become unhappy with relationships, whether they were wonderful and they change, or for whatever reason life has a different plan for us, is that we have expectations, that we don't live in the moment enough and just have gratitude, and we let fear come in and we start projecting things, which I think is what you were saying earlier about people that we don't have children yet, or they don't, they're judging it, judgment, and not living in the moment of just gratitude, and not expecting someone to complete you, which is kind of what I thought this is really important topic about self-love, is when you have such a core in yourself of self-love, then not only do you keep people that may cross boundaries that become an unhealthy relationship, because you're going to have strong sense of self, and the way you treat yourself, you're not going to let somebody else treat you. A lot of times I think we date our self-esteem, and so what happens is we'll let someone in and they start treating us badly because that's what we think we're worth. But if we hold a sense of self where we love ourselves first, then we don't let other people do that to us. We don't accept it from ourselves, so we wouldn't accept it from someone else. And as soon as we recognize that, we should move on, because that's what I would call an unhealthy relationship. But everything being positive in the angel world, that's a lesson. That's like a sign for us to learn about ourselves and love itself.
I also think sometimes we get too far ahead of ourselves. As someone who has been divorced for 13 years, I always tell people, so many people I think are too judgmental when they're looking for someone, and everybody does that checklist the minute they meet someone. And I think you miss a lot of fabulous opportunities when you're got your little checklist and you're not being open. And I always tell this story. I had went on vacation with a friend of mine many years ago, and I had met someone while I was away, and we went to dinner and stuff. We were there for just a couple of days. Well, many years later, I had gotten an email from this person, and he's from Germany, and he was working in the Cayman Islands. And he was like, listen, I'm only here for a few days. Why don't you fly out and see me and, come and spend the weekend? And it was so funny because I did a lot of thinking about it, because obviously, this person lives in Germany. I live here. We're both divorced. We both have kids. So this is not anything that could ever turn into a future relationship. But on a friendship level, we did have a really good connection. And I did go and I did fly out there. And I say to this day, it was the most amazing weekend of my entire life. And I share the story with people all the time, because had I been coming from a place of this could never go anywhere and I'm only interested in the long-term, romantic relationship, instead of going, this is someone who I really had a strong friendship connection with, and wouldn't it be wonderful to have this experience? And I think sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves that everything has to be the forever thing and it has to be the romantic, and we miss out on a lot of really great life experiences.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have been on a radio show a few weeks back, and talking about the dating sites.
Yes.
And I was bringing up some of my past experiences about dating, and one of the hardest things was, what do I do? It got to a point where what was the best thing to tell people in order to move on? And one of my friends just said to me, look, you just need to say, I'm sorry, you're not the one. I don't want to waste any more of your time. It was lovely to meet you. Good luck.
Right. I think it's very important what you just said, because I think that feeds into self-love. I know, like Johnny, you read for a lot of people, and a lot of the issues are relationships, and it's women and men. When there's a breakup or a relationship ends, people always go to the what's wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And they really go into a place of just negativity of, what did I do wrong? Right. And I always tell people, what if there's nothing wrong with you? What if you're just not the match for that person? That doesn't make you a bad person. Yeah. And I think that's a really important point. I always tell people, so many people stay in grief so long after a relationship ends, and I don't understand that. It's not that you don't get upset and you don't miss it and you don't feel bad, but why would you stay home and cry your eyes out over someone who doesn't think that you're important enough or you're worthy enough to be with? Like, why are you crying over that person that doesn't see your worth?
Well, I think that's sorry, John. I think that's I think a big deal of that is you having to be ready spiritually, just knowing that you are enough by yourself, that you don't necessarily need that person to fulfill you, that you are all you need to be. It's always nice to have someone to share life with and share love with and go places and do things with. It's hard playing billiards all by yourself, but it's I've gone through very severe heartache after a breakup, and it was because really I wasn't looking at the bigger picture. And I didn't take it on, and I didn't understand that you needed to go through all of this in order to grow, to be ready for potentially who you're going to end up being with.
Right. So, I think we've all done that, suffering unnecessarily, right?
Yes, that's what I was saying earlier about the self-esteem and the lesson of moving on and what that relationship taught you. One of the things is that I've noticed is, in my own life is, there's just been different phases, and as I've grown, the relationship changes. Sometimes I've outgrown the other person, or the other person isn't what I thought they were over a longer period of time, and it's just a high level of self-love and empowerment to be able to walk away. And I think reason why people have that difficulty is, once again, expectations put on it and not living in the moment, being honest with themselves. But it takes an incredible amount of courage, but optimism, and believing that the world really does have an abundance of love and people and relationships and experiences. And we're now talking about our life expectancy. Someone told me the other day that a third of the babies being born today will live to be over 125 years old.
Wow.
Can you imagine being stuck with one person for 100? No offense, but I am glad I have had different experiences.
I'm just thinking of what my dating life is going to be like at 100.
Makes us richer, and we'll be having our podcast.
Yeah. What site am I going on for that?
Nice walking
Because we all know I'll still be single at 100. Let's be honest.
So, talking about that, I mean, one of the things that came to my mind and has been an issue. What do you both think about when one individual is most certainly spiritually growing, leaps and bounds beyond the other person, it does not mean that they are better, they are greater. It just means they are growing at a different rate, they are growing in a different way. And the other person maybe doesn't get it, but they're willing to hang in there to learn, to grow. What would you suggest to people that are in a very dynamic relationship like that, where one person isn't as far as the other spiritually?
Well, of course, you always want to try to help the other person. You know, you never judge people for where they're at, but you do have to make a conscious choice whether it's a healthy relationship, and balance that out with whether it's worth staying. But most of the time that I have seen, you know, I am a quick grower, learner, and I tend to flow with things a little bit more than the average person. So for me, it's been rather difficult for other people to maintain their level of interest or their view of me being able to change while I've changed. So but at the same time, I'm forever an optimist. So I tend to be someone that stays too long because I want that person to come along. But it's a conscious choice for every single one of us. No one is exempt. I don't care what your circumstances have been or when you were born, or everyone has to make conscious choices for themselves and are responsible. And there's a saying that somebody said to me, you know, once, and I remembered, you know, we're born alone and we die alone. And that it's not really as bad as that might sound, but it's truly, we are here as our own, and we ultimately, at the end of our life, it's our own journey that we need to make decisions for ourselves and not have regrets. And as I've gotten older, from experiences, the regrets have not been the mistakes or even the relationships that didn't turn out. The regrets were the ones that I didn't pursue, or the things I didn't, or having enough self-esteem from the beginning to be where I'm at today, being happy, which is what we're kind of talking about, self-love, and being happy while you're with someone or not.
Right.
And I think in answer to your question, Andrew, too, going back to what Johnny said before about expectations, I don't think it's practical to assume that everybody is always going to grow at the same rate. And so you're always going to have somebody that's growing in the relationship at different times. But I think the deciding factor for me has always been, I don't expect anybody to be in the same place of growth at any given time. But I think when someone is stagnating your growth, or you feel like they're blocking your growth or making your growth difficult, then that's when you need to make a decision. And I think for myself, you know, we're talking about love in this podcast. For me, I think the one thing that anybody listening, if there was one message that I would want to give them, it's that just because someone doesn't see your worthiness does not mean that you're not worthy.
Exactly.
It's just that person is in that place where they can't see it, and that's okay.
Right. They have limitations. They have their stuff and their filters, and if they're viewing you in a certain way and they just can't see it, but you see, this is what I'm talking about, growth. This is exactly what, you know, back to the self-love of, you know, you're recognizing, and that's what this relationship has, you know, going for full circle, that might be teaching you, is how to evolve to the next level of self-love. And from that strong core, which is what, you know, we're talking about here, you know, that only creates a better relationship to come. The law of attraction, people, you know, I think we are so disempowered with fear and the fact that people don't talk about it enough. I can tell you that absolutely, law of attraction, the universe hates a vacuum. It wants to fill it, and it'll happen so quickly, but you have to let the old go and be open to the new. And in order to do that, though, you have to have the leap of faith of taking that step. And I'll tell you, I have clients that know that they're in a bad relationship, know they want to move on, but they also want me to tell them when they're going to meet the person, so they already have that void filled before they actually take the step to move on.
Absolutely.
And it's like, move on, and you're going to be far more attractive because you're going to be healthy and happy and as your own unit.
You say that though, but I've been in the experience where you start a brand new relationship. You're full of life, full of vigor. You're walking down the street. You got a gleam in your eye. You got a glint in your teeth, and every woman I pass seems to be crazily attracted to me at the very wrong moment.
Because you're putting out that energy.
Exactly.
That's why.
Exactly.
It's funny when I had first gotten divorced, I went to therapy. And I remember having a really, really bad day one day. And I remember the therapist saying to me, let me ask you a question. When you met your ex-husband, which I had known my ex-husband since I was 12 years old, she said to me, the moment that you met him, if someone would have told you what the end result would be, what would your next 5 minutes have been like? And I remember sitting there that day and thinking about it. And obviously I have no regrets because I have two amazing, beautiful, phenomenal children that I would not change a thing for. But I took that a step further and I started thinking about the several relationships that I've had over the 13 years. And I have to be very honest with you. There is honestly not one that I would change.
Yeah.
Because, some of them have been fabulous. And it was just a matter of we were in different places at different times or we had different goals. And quite honestly, some of them were horrific. And, back in the day, I probably should have gotten out of them faster. But having said all of that, there's honestly not one that I did not learn something from. That doesn't mean at the moment of the ending that I was going, yay, look at me learning.
Yeah,
I was upset like everybody else. But looking back, I can really see how every relationship that I had, and I think this goes even beyond romantic relationships, friendships and things like that you really do learn something from. And when you look at that, there's no such things as mistakes.
Yeah, this is actually touching on a huge area of what I'll be talking about on the day at the Your Life Starts Today seminar on March the 16th. I am a student of life, really, and I got caught up in a very whirlwind type romance and relationship. I sold everything that I had and I left the UK and I came to this country on April 7th, 1992. A couple of years later, I was divorced. And I won't say anything about my then partner, but suffice it to say, it was probably one of the life's toughest situations that I've ever been in. And everything since, I literally put myself on a desert island. I became my issues, I became my problems. Pretty much everyone I met for the very first time, I would tell them, hello, I'm Andrew, I'm divorced. I was continuing on a day-to-day basis to manifest that reality, to keep on feeding the beast of nothingness, of lack in my life. I say nothingness and lack, but if anything, it's the situation and the lesson has been probably one of the larger lessons in my life. Today, I'm grateful. Today, I'm thankful that I've gone through this. Like I said, it's been one of the larger lessons in my life, and I can look behind me and not necessarily feel so much the pain, but I can see what's been born because of it.
Well, this has been a really great conversation that I think could really be helpful for everybody, especially on this day of Valentine's Day.
I know my relationship's going to be so much better for listening to it.
And I think as we bring this very first podcast to a close, are there any final thoughts that you have, Johnny, or anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I guess along the lines of what you had just been talking about is... Andrew was talking about how all these women are attracted to him with just smiling with his gleaming teeth.
Yeah. He left out his big bulging muscles.
That was how it seemed. Obviously, not everyone.
But my point being on that, Andrew, is exactly what I was talking about with self-love, and the power of love is absolutely the most powerful force, if not the force of the universe. It's how we view things that negatively, we don't realize that it's really love working for us, but it's teaching us a lesson that we need to know to grow. And we can apply that to our relationships in a very positive way, and we can apply it to our lessons. I think that back to what you were saying about the attraction thing, when you're happiest, why are all these people all of a sudden, when you're in a relationship, why is this? Because when you're embodying, when you're feeling that emotion, you're radiating that, and that's very attractive. So love being so powerful, but that happiness of and owning that is what will attract to you more of it, the same. The universe, the law of attraction, like attracts like. And when you're focusing on the positive and when you're really feeling that energy, you're radiating it. And that's in a magnet, powerful magnet. And so that's my tip that I want to leave this podcast with. And the issue, of course, there's much more to talk about on the issue of love. But as far as being empowered and going forward, what you focus on is what you will attract to you. And if you're focusing on the broken, you're going to attract more of the broken. If you focus on the love and the happiness and what works and what you did like or you learned about yourself and what you love about yourself, you're going to attract people that like the same and will be attracted to you for the same. So I have found that to be so true. So I'd like to leave on that.
Okay, good. I mean, it's pretty similar to, I guess, my little tip. Without self-love, without a self-understanding of who we are, how we work, where we're going, and all this other good stuff, without that, we've got self-doubt, we've got fear, we've got bad self-talk, we got negative self-talk, and that's just going to put out and get the workings of the universe to create for you those very things. But when you focus on love and when you focus on the positivity and all that's available to you, and you see the greatness in it all, that's when you put some real power behind your manifestation, and you can create, literally, I call it so much magic, because there's so many different names for it, be it God, love, magic, it's all the same thing in my book. But if you can change that inner talk and change it as much as you can in as many areas that you can, ultimately that's going to flow into your relationship. And if anything, to boil it all down, be kind and not right. So that's my little say.
Excellent. And I think my tip would just be to remind everyone that they don't need someone to complete them, and that you're not defined by how someone else sees you or views you, that you really do have to love yourself, and that you have to be okay by yourself, and that's okay. And if somebody chooses to be with you or chooses not to be with you, that's not a reflection of who you are as a person. We're all on our own journeys, and we all have our own choices to make.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So there we go. There's the end of the very first podcast for Your Life Starts Today. Please check us out on our website, yourlifestartstoday.com. And if you can make it, if you're going to be near Middletown, New York on the March the 16th this year, 2013, then please go to the website, get your tickets, and we'll see you there on the day. So in closing, John, is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that for those of you that does have someone in your life that you love and you're happy with, just be in total gratitude and in the moment and embrace that and just be happy and allow yourself to experience all that joy and love and the two of you together. And so I wish that for everyone.
Excellent advice.
And remember, Valentine's Day shouldn't just be one day a year. Mm-hmm. I think Johnny will agree with me. As psychic mediums, we see people every day who think that they're going to get that last time to say goodbye to someone. So, if you have someone in your life and there's people that you love, don't wait till Valentine's Day. Love is something that should be expressed every day. Appreciation should be shown every day.
Yeah.
So true. In my line of work, there are so many people that want to talk to a deceased loved one, that they just wanted that one last chance,
right,
and they didn't get it. They thought they would, or so every moment is precious, and that's why they call it the present.
Yeah, I kind of look at Valentine's Day a little bit like New Year's resolutions. I don't like making them, but it's just nice to check yourself. And, maybe you don't believe in Valentine's Day, but maybe your partner does. So if they do, please make the effort. And if you haven't made it today, make it tomorrow. And make up for it maybe the day after that, and then the day after that. Make it a week of Valentine's Days. But, just don't wait for a day to make something special.